What is your biggest regret? So I have a best friend named Jay who's also my schoolmate and classmate. We are both 16 and live in the same residential area. A little description of Jay. He's tall, handsome, athletic, fit, smart, funny and sweet. He even has good hair and the most beautiful eyes. Jay and I had been friends from kindergarten up till high school. When we were in primary school he confessed feelings many times, but I only considered him a friend. I never saw him to be as handsome and amazing as everyone else did. Because I saw him almost all the time of my life. About a month and a half ago, Jay once again confessed to me. This time he did it more maturely and more in a sweet way that I actually felt butterflies in my stomach. But I wasn't sure I felt the same. His confession did really make me think of it, but I really valued our friendship more and I didn't think I felt anything for Jay. So once again I rejected him in a way I regret to this day. I laughed and said, "So I'm still your little obsession. Grow up and move on already, Jay." His face after I said that made me regret my words. He didn't laugh like I did. It seemed like he was fighting back tears. I honestly didn't think he was being 100% serious, because he would always say how he will confess 100 times a week to wait for me to say yes. Jay just walked away and left. He didn't come to school the next day. He didn't come outside when I went to call him to walk together to school. He ignored my calls and texts, and when he did see them, he never responded. At first I was angry at him. Why was he taking rejection so seriously? I already rejected him enough times for him to get used to it. That's what I thought then. But the more I didn't get the notification of his text, his random FaceTimes, the goofy TikToks he'd send me, it started to weigh on me. I had made so many tries to text him when I finally sent him an apology paragraph, but it was then I found out he blocked me. He came back to school after missing 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks I thought of him always. Our desks were together, so I'd zone out while staring at his desk. One of my friends even told me I might have fallen for Jay, but I denied it. I denied it until I saw him when he came back. Jay looked like a whole different person. He had dyed his blonde hair jet black and had gotten an amazing haircut. His aura completely changed as soon as he entered the class. Everyone looked at him and I did too. He sat down at his desk and didn't even turn to look at me. Everyone came and showered him with compliments about his good haircut, and he suddenly had the most charming smile as he thanked everyone. Well, everyone but me. I turned to him with a happy smile and said, "Black hair really suits you well. You look so handsome." But he ignored me and continued to speak to this other guy who even stopped talking so Jay would react to my comment, but Jay did nothing. He ignored me the whole morning, and when our homeroom teacher came he asked to switch seats but was denied. He ignored me and hung out with the people he knew I didn't like. He always walked away when I tried to talk to him. I had actually come to accept that I liked him back. I even asked my friends and my sister and even my mom if feeling certain ways after he left meant I liked him, and my mom said, "Maybe he just needed to leave for you to realize how much you care for him." My friends and sister said the same. I decided to go and tell him the day after he returned. I didn't get the chance in the morning because he went to his new friends, and when I tried to talk to him he went away. I felt so bad that I went crying in the girls' bathroom. I regretted it. I regretted it so much. I wished I had just accepted his feelings then and tried to see if I'd fall for him with time. I shouldn't have waited this long. He ignored me completely and acted like we were never even friends for the rest of the days that followed. I had enough of it though. Since he had me blocked everywhere, I took my sister's phone and sent him a long message confessing my feelings, apologizing and asking him if we could be friends again, and telling him how much I missed him. I begged him to talk to me and really hoped he would see it. He told me to meet him after school the next day. When I went to meet him, he was standing with the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. My heart dropped and I fell to my knees.
At the height of my substance use, a fellow junkie happily informed me that we had a promising new plug who went by Miss Coco. I go to the address the very next day and realize this woman lived only a few streets down from my homegirl Selena. I stopped by her place first to check in. When she asked me why I was in the neighborhood, I told her I was coming to see Miss Coco, and her expression changed. She told me that Miss Coco was a cold-blooded killer. Selena begged me to be careful. Of course, I didn't listen. It was just an old woman after all. I slid over to the address of this little house and knocked on the door. She was supposed to be expecting me. The door cracked barely open and I saw how short and old she was. All I could really see was a slice of her face and one of her bloodshot eyes. She asked my name, I told her, and she opened the door for me. She told me to follow her and I finally got a real good look. She was so feeble looking and walked with a cane. Her head was wrapped in a silk bonnet and she was wearing something like a muumuu. Diabetes had taken part of her left foot. We're in the living room now and she asked me to sit down. I chose the only empty spot on the couch. The entire house was cluttered, but not dirty. She offered me a drink and a snack. She looked at me with surprisingly kind eyes. I remember thinking Selena was foolish for buying into all the hood tales of how dangerous this woman was. She was basically the nice grandma poster woman. I drank a soda, declined a snack, and purchased her entire prescription of pain meds. She'll be getting it filled again on the same day next month, she informed me. I returned to her house on a routine schedule for several months. I always drank a soda, declined a snack, and went happily on my merry, intoxicated way. I even got to know her a bit during my visits, her diabetes, her kids, how helpful grass was for her pain. I brought her a reefer to share here and there. I even helped her move some furniture one day. Never a mention of her late husband though, and I wasn't going to ask. I had long forgotten any sort of wild ideas about this sweet old woman possibly snapping at any moment. One summer month, it was my day to go to Miss Coco's. My boy Shane was with me already, so I decided to let him ride along. We show up and go inside. Same routine as always. She looked at him somewhat suspiciously, but I told her he was a good person and she allowed him in. During our little chat, Shane mentioned something about wanting to see a movie that had just come out. I think it was Transformers. Miss Coco got excited and told us she happened to have a bootleg of it that we could borrow. Sick. She let us look through a giant stack of bootleg DVDs and take whatever we wanted. We took 3 of them and she simply asked that we return them when we were done. That night we decided to watch the one Shane had wanted to see, so we popped it into the player at my place. Immediately it was unwatchable. It seriously looked like a cell phone video. Sheila LaBeouf looked more like Sheila Beef. The Transformers looked like big Hot Wheels rolling around. You could see people in the theater walking around in front of the screen. The guy filming was talking loudly to his date the entire time. Garbage. We laughed about it, assumed the other 2 were just as bad and watched something else. A few days later I was going to hang with Selena, so I figured I'd swing by and return the DVDs to Miss Coco. I tried calling, but she didn't answer. I walked up to the doorstep and knocked. Still no answer. No big deal, I'll just leave him here by the door for her. She had a storm door that had a screen on the top half, and was solid metal on the bottom half. I opened that door, propped the DVDs up against her actual door, and then closed it. That way they couldn't be seen, and were protected from the weather as well. I go on to Selena's place and don't give it a second thought. Later that night I'm using with my friends and my phone starts ringing. I was horrifically faded, so I just decided to ignore it. I don't feel like talking. It rings again. And again. Finally my homie is like, "You gonna answer that?" So I pulled out my phone to check it. It was Miss Coco. She never calls me. Ever. Especially not late at night. Having her number in my phone was strictly for the purpose of me calling her on the 12th of each month to announce what time I'm coming over. That's it. Today was only the 9th. I thought maybe something bad had happened and she needed help. I called back and she picked up before it even rang one time. She was furious. I mean absolutely livid. She did not sound like the little old lady whose couch I chill on. She was extremely pissed about the fact that I had left her DVDs in the door. She lectured me about how a dumb white person like me just doesn't understand how things work in the hood. Someone could have seen me leave them there, and could have come behind me and stolen them. I should have waited until she was home. She told me that I was disrespectful, rude and ungrateful. She went on and on. I didn't have an attitude in my voice, and I did apologize. However, I also mentioned that even though I appreciated the gesture, the movies were really pretty terrible and not worth anything. Abruptly, and very eerily, her tone changed. Suddenly she was sweet old Miss Coco again. She told me I was right and she was just a little on edge that night. She apologized for her reaction and told me I was good to her and didn't deserve that. Then, she says she'd gotten her prescription early this month. She picked it up earlier today. She said, "Why don't you come on over and get it tonight?" Now, any sane, sober person would have immediately noticed red flags here. But in my infinite knotted out wisdom, I thought Junkie Jesus had performed a miracle for me and that my night was about to get even better. Time to get extra faded, brothers. I'll be back with more goodies ASAP. I head off down the street to Coco's house. I'm still violently intoxicated. I'm walking up to the house and I see that the DVDs are still there. Coco opens the door before I even get on the step and tells me to pick up the movies and bring them inside. Her voice was stern, which was unlike her, but she didn't sound crazy like she had on the phone. I bring them into the living room where I always go to sit, and something is just off. The hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I realize she's still behind me, in the foyer area. She starts telling me the same thing she was saying on the phone, but calmly this time. My back is still to her. I don't say a word. I set the DVDs onto a side table. Despite being extremely inebriated, I finally realize that I'm definitely not here to pick up pills. A temporary sobriety of the survival instinct variety kicked in all at once. Everything just sort of clicked into such a crisp vividness that I'll never forget. I knew she was standing exactly where the shotgun leans. I knew she was between me and the door. I knew that she wanted to kill me. And I knew that she already had a whole gang of local folk ready to corroborate whatever story she came up with. Every single detail that Selena had described to me the day she warned me about Miss Coco played through my mind in a matter of seconds. I ran. I burst out the back of the living room, knocking over that stack of horrendous bootlegs as I scrambled past it. I'll be honest, once I had found my way out the back door, I wasn't that scared anymore. It's not like she was going to catch me. I circled back around the tiny house and took off down the street before I collapsed. It was then I noticed that I was leaking blood from a missing chunk of my right calf. I don't know how I hadn't felt it, or heard it. I reached for my phone, but I had left it in the house. She even managed to hobble around and look out of the front door for me. The last thing I felt before passing out was immense fear. I woke up on Selena's couch with my wound bandaged up. I never went back to Miss Coco's after that, and I decided to go completely sober. It was 4 years ago that I met an amazing girl from Italy. She was an angel. The purest girl I have ever met. My friend and I met her for 3 days or so, but we became real good friends. We really wished good for her and knew we would never meet again, so we exchanged Facebooks and said our goodbyes. About a year later, I got a ping saying that she was visiting a city next to where we were working. I didn't know why, but I just wanted to meet her. I never had such a connection with a girl before. Not that I loved her, but I respected and truly cared for her. Anyway, we met and had a really good time. She had been depressed for a long time and felt better after our meet. She insisted that we should stay in contact as she was not feeling very good and the people around her were evil. We started to chat and talk over the phone often, but not very frequently. She had real problems going on and sometimes she sounded very sad and I had to tell her that everything was going to be alright. Slowly our call frequency went up and we were talking over the phone for hours about 2 to 3 times a week. Meanwhile, I was going through some weird phase of my own where I loved being alienated and started to be in a box of my own. I cut most of my unnecessary contacts. I read about relationships and how to handle them and other BS. I was starting my own company at that time and wanted to focus on it. She would talk about her stuff, her situations and about the weird stuff that made her really sad, but at the end of the call she was always laughing and disconnecting the call with a happy mind. It felt nice. One day, I was stuck on something I was working on. I got a text from her saying she really wanted to talk to me. I remembered I had missed her call 2 days before I received the text. I immediately replied that I was busy and that I was sorry I wanted to call her back but got caught up in something and that I'll call her that night. And the thing happened. I completely forgot about that. I was too busy with my work and saw her message like a week later while scrolling through. I called, messaged, and pinged her on Facebook but she was offline everywhere. Slowly I was forgetting about her but after 8 months or so I got a weird urge to find her. I pinged her on Facebook, stalked through her photos, and somewhere I saw a comment, RIP. My heart stopped. I pinged everyone in that comment chain and 2 friends of hers told me the news. I was numb for a day or 2. I brought myself to ask her friends about the details and got to know she ended herself around the time I had the last conversation with her. I have never been so devastated knowing one call of mine could have saved her life. She had SH tendencies and in most of our conversations she mentioned that if it wasn't for me, she would have been dead long gone. I feel like I had betrayed her. Sometimes when I am alone, I think about what she must have gone through those days after she called, messaged me and the time I never returned her call. I sent a bomb threat to my school because I didn't want to take a test. I know I messed up big time, and I don't know where to go from here. Before I ask for your advice, I need to give you some context. For the past few months, things at home have been pretty rough. My parents have been constantly arguing, and the tension in the house was unbearable. It felt like everything was falling apart, and I couldn't focus on anything, let alone school work. I'm a high school student, and like any other kid, I've had my share of stress and anxiety over exams and stuff. But last week, it got way out of hand. I had this huge test coming up, and I knew I was completely unprepared. I was so distracted by my family issues that I didn't find the time to study, and I panicked. I knew that if I failed this test, my grades would tank, and my parents would probably lose it. So, in a moment of desperation and stupidity, I came up with what I thought was a brilliant plan to get out of taking the test. I decided to send a bomb threat to the school. I thought that if the school got evacuated, they'd cancel the test, and I'd get more time to prepare. I know. It was a dumb idea, but at the time, it seemed like the only way out. I made sure to use a burner email account and made the message as vague and threatening as possible. The message I ended up sending reads something like this. There's a bomb in the school. You have until noon to evacuate before it detonates. Don't try to find it or you'll regret it. I hit send, and my heart raced as I waited for the consequences of my actions to unfold. Sure enough, within an hour of sending the email, the school was on lockdown, and everyone was evacuated. The police were called, and a bomb squad went through the entire building. I stood there, watching from a distance, as my classmates and teachers were herded out of the school, fear in their eyes. It was at this moment that I felt a deep sense of guilt and shame wash over me. I had put everyone I knew in danger, and the looks of fear on their faces were a stark reminder of the consequences of my actions. I felt sick to my stomach, and I knew I had to find a way to make things right. But now, I'm just scared. Scared that I'll get caught, scared that I'll be arrested, and scared that my life will be ruined forever. I know it's my fault, and I deserve whatever punishment comes my way. What should I do? I made my bully take his own life. I come from a middle-class family where my single mom worked very hard and spent almost all of her money to send me to a very prestigious private school growing up where all of the rich parents would send their kids to give them the best future possible. I say this to say that I did not fit in with most of the students from that school. While their parents would drive them to school in one of their luxury sports cars, my mom would drive me to school in her beat-up Honda Civic. In my school, there was this one student. Let's call him Ethan. Ethan and I would never get along and I would constantly be the butt of all of his jokes. He would make fun of me for the phone I had, the car my mom drove. It felt like he would make fun of me for simply breathing. I had very low self-esteem, so all of these jokes took their toll on me and made me feel like I was less than everyone else and that there was something wrong with me when everyone would laugh at the jokes he made about me. One day, there was an after-school party being thrown for one of the students for her birthday. The girl, let's call her Sarah, was very popular and likable person. The type to get along with almost everyone, so needless to say basically our entire grade was going to be attending this party. Fast forward to the night of the party and I get ready and walk to her house as it's only a few blocks away from me, and I also didn't want anyone to see the car my mom drove as that would obviously cause more jokes to be made about me. I walk in and I'm greeted by Sarah and she lets me inside and I go to sit down and I see Ethan. Ethan and I locked eyes and his eyes lit up and he shouted some sarcastic comment at me, to which everyone laughed. He pointed out how my dress was too small and suggested that I go to the thrift store to get a different size. Again, everyone laughed. I just walked through the door and what was supposed to be a fun party has already turned into me getting berated by Ethan while everyone else at the party laughs. I excuse myself and go to the bathroom and just begin to sob. I didn't understand why I was always made fun of simply for existing. Simply for not having the nicest car, or the newest phone, or the richest parents. Was that enough of a reason to justify this harassment? I was fed up. I wiped the tears from my face and walked back out of the bathroom and straight up to Ethan. I put my arm around him and whispered in his ear to come somewhere more private. He followed me into one of Sarah's guest bedrooms and we began kissing and one thing led to another and we ended up going all the way. After we finished we both got up, got dressed, and Ethan rejoined the party while I called my mom to pick me up. On the way home I sent a message in one of the school group chats telling everyone what happened. But instead of telling them it was completely consensual I told all of them that he forced me. I turned my phone off and went to bed and woke up the next day, got dressed and went to school like normal. When I walked into class everyone was staring at me and giving me weird looks. Everyone except for Ethan. He was nowhere to be found. I sat down and asked the girl beside me where Ethan was and she said you didn't hear. The school got word of what he did last night and he ended up getting expelled. I know I should have been relieved hearing that my biggest bully would no longer be attending my school, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of guilt for lying. Nobody ever talked about what happened that night and the school year carried on like normal. I ended up graduating, going to university, and getting my dream job. I'm 28 now and my school recently had a 10-year high school reunion. At first I wasn't going to attend, but I was reminded of the hell those kids put me through, and now that I'm doing well in life and probably making more money than all of the kids that bullied me I ended up deciding to go. Why not? After all, it would be an excuse to show all of those snobby kids where I ended up despite their constant tormenting. Fast forward to the reunion and I see a lot of familiar faces. Everyone looks a bit different, but I can still recognize most of the people there. I get to chatting with everyone and everybody changed a lot. The kids that used to make fun of me now were greeting me with a smile and seemed like completely different people. I guess that's what happens when given time to mature. The night went on and we talked about everything. Where we are now. Our jobs. Some of us even had kids. And then, being a bit curious, I asked, does anyone know what happened to Ethan? Everyone's eyes widened and one of the girls explained to me that after Ethan got expelled from school his parents disowned him, deeming him a failure and saying that he tarnished his family's successful reputation, and he ended up working as a janitor at a local mall before taking his own life. My face went pale. I don't think I was able to even mutter a single word. I just got up, packed my things, and went home. That was last night. I'm still in shock as I write this and I haven't slept at all. To say I feel horrible would be an understatement. I never expected it to go that far. I just thought maybe if I made up some lie he would leave me alone and the bullying would stop. I don't know what to do or how to feel.